Good evening and welcome to News Review. On Wednesday, the Foreign Office summoned the Spanish ambassador, Federico Trillo, to underline serious concern at the incursion into British Gibraltar territorial waters by Spanish survey ship Ángeles Alvarinho.
Minister David Lidington said he was extremely concerned by last night's incursion. He said that not only were the ship's actions unlawful, but it was accompanied by a Spanish Guardia Civil vessel, whose dangerous manoeuvring presented a significant safety concern on the waters. The minister notes that according to the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, the waters around Gibraltar are indisputably British waters under UK sovereignty, in which only the UK has the right to exercise jurisdiction. Mr. Lidington said the British government takes a grave view of any attempt by Spain to exert authority or control within BGTW and considers such incursions as a violation of its sovereignty. He strongly condemned what he describes as this provocative action and urged the Spanish government to ensure that it's not repeated. David Lidington has reaffirmed that the UK will continue to take whatever action it considers necessary to uphold British sovereignty and the interests of Gibraltar, its people, its security and its economy.
And the Spanish Foreign Ministry, in turn, summoned the British ambassador in Madrid, Simon Manley. The Spanish government complained that British vessels tried to impede the environmental investigations being carried out in Spanish waters. The area off Europa Point, where the incursion took place, falls within that demarcated by Spain as an EU site of community importance. The Gibraltar government condemned the incursions by the Spanish vessel Ángeles Alvarinho and the Spanish Navy and Guardia Civil vessels that accompanied it. Shadow Minister for Europe Gareth Thomas told GBC this week the UK Labour Party has learned from its mistakes in 2002 when it advanced a joint sovereignty proposal with Spain. Mr Thomas said it is now very clear to Labour that the people of Gibraltar have got the right to self-determination in respect of their relationship with the UK and Spain.
Tense words were exchanged off Europa Point on Tuesday night.
Was initiated to make sure that the people of Gibraltar had a very direct seat.
Today there were words of support for Gibraltar's position from Labour's Shadow Minister for Europe. Unsurprisingly, Mr Thomas was less kind towards the UK government.
What I'm struck by is how quiet the Foreign Office seems to be. I think it's amazing that there's been no Foreign Office visit by a minister to Gibraltar since 2011. If I can find the time to come twice in the 6 months since I was appointed as Labour's Shadow Europe Minister, why can't Foreign Office ministers come out here and see for themselves the scale of the issues around the border, to understand directly the concerns around the civil aviation issues, and obviously to hear about the ongoing issues around incursions?
Well, it's hugely important for us that a front-bench spokesman of one of the three main political parties in the United Kingdom has wanted to return to Gibraltar within 6 months of having first been here, within 6 months of having been appointed, and to have the opportunity to brief him in person on the ground in Gibraltar on all of the issues which are relevant, and has lived through with us the incursion that we saw 2 nights ago, and therefore understood also the emotional part that the people of Gibraltar have to suffer as a result of having these constant aggressions visited upon us by the Kingdom of Spain.
How upsetting is it for you as Chief Minister to experience such an incursion and to hear the Spanish government in Madrid saying, you know, Mister, you shouldn't have been there because these are Spanish waters?
Well, it's complete nonsense, and it's as upsetting for the Chief Minister as it is for every other citizen of Gibraltar, because we know that all the Spaniards are doing is wasting diesel that they can't afford in trying to make out a case that in law is absolutely nonsense. But look, this is the sort of thing that we have to put up with from a government in Spain that has demonstrated, as we said in our comments about this incident yesterday, that they're not interested in dialogue. They're just interested in prodding and bullying and harassing for their own internal purposes. controversies, obviously. We've seen today that this is all over the Spanish newspapers. Surprise, surprise, this week there was a big story about whether the King of Spain had been involved in the 23F events of some years ago and whether he had some involvement in the planning of that. All of a sudden,
just purely covering up their bad news.
Gibraltar takes up some more column inches that might otherwise have been taken up by an embarrassing story.
You'd forgive me or viewers for thinking, well, hang on, wasn't it a Labour government and Mr Hayne who was prepared to hand Gibraltar over to Spain, or at least strike a joint sovereignty deal? What assurances could you provide our viewers and listeners that there's a different approach within the Labour Party?
Well, we've learnt from the very strong message that the people of Gibraltar gave to our government at that time. So what we're very clear is that the people of Gibraltar have got to have the right to self-determination in terms of the relationship with Spain and the UK. What we believe very strongly is that the trilateral dialogue that we set up after that process is very important, and Gibraltar has got to have a seat at the table in any discussion about issues that affect Spain, Britain and the people here. Now, there's been a lot of talk from the current UK government about returning to that trilateral dialogue, but not very much action. And what we would want to do, if we got it back into power, is to step up the pressure on the Spanish to come back to the negotiating table with the people of Gibraltar at that negotiating table to sort out the issues that there are between the three of us.
In the past 48 hours, Spanish incursions, Spanish government in Madrid saying these are Spanish waters, Mr Lidington saying yes, some of this La Linea Marina is in Gibraltar waters. The Spanish are making inroads here.
Well, I mean, for example, if you look at the area of the isthmus, which is the area where the groin that you're talking about was created in '82, where the Alcaidesa Marina then came up thereafter. If they made any inroads, then those inroads were firmly and quickly dealt with from the day that we created the reef and we demonstrated that those waters are ours.
Rather than just having coffee with the ambassador occasionally, as the current Foreign Office seem to be doing, I actually think they need to come out to Gibraltar and understand properly the significance of the incursions for the people of Gibraltar. They could understand too the significance of the delays at the border as well, and that might prompt them to take some stronger action and to be a bit firmer with Madrid.
We brief all parliamentarians that are supporters of Gibraltar on what's happening at the frontier. I think the difference is that Gareth Thomas has come out and seen it for himself, and there's a huge value in that, in understanding the disruption that this causes throughout the rest of the airport area, how we sometimes need to also avoid disruption by diverting cars into Devil's Tower Road, the types of emotions that people go through when they're in the queue, the pedestrian queue. Yesterday was a particularly bad day weather-wise, the connection between queue and incursion and reaction and calling of the ambassador. I think it's propitious that Gareth was here to understand all of that and to take back to London the impression that he will have of how Spain tries to play this transparent Machiavellian game in trying to strangle Gibraltar at the frontier.
There might be one or two Gibraltarians who will echo Mr Thomas's call for the Foreign Office to send a minister to the Rock to experience firsthand the scale of the issues here.
Meanwhile, the Spanish Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy expressed confidence that there would be no repetition of incidents at sea between the Royal Navy and the Guardia Civil. Mr Rajoy noted, however, that the UK and Spain have different ways of seeing things and said this sometimes gives rise to incidents of this kind. Nevertheless, he claimed that relations between both countries are excellent at the levels of government, citizens and Prime Minister. Last month, in his evidence to the Foreign Affairs Committee of the House of Commons, Chief Minister Fabian Picardo urged UK ministers to reject Spanish assertions that the Anglo-Spanish relationship is excellent, while Madrid continues to bully and harass Gibraltar. David Lidington confirmed this week to the UK Parliament that 1,000th of a square mile of La Linea's Alcaidesa Marina encroaches on Gibraltar waters. The Minister for Europe also conceded the Foreign Office has found no record of a protest of the completion of the marina in 2008. In January, GBC ran an exclusive report showing that an up-to-date chart indicates that a significant part of La Linea's Alcocer marina was built on land that has been reclaimed in British Gibraltar territorial waters. The official chart was approved by the International Maritime Organization, a United Nations agency. Now Conservative MP Andrew Rosendale asked the Minister for Europe whether he was aware of this fact, how much of the marina exactly is in Gibraltar waters, and what representations have been made to the Spanish government. Mr. Lidington said he and the Foreign Secretary, William Hague, have been informed that 1,000th of a square mile of La Linea's Alcocer marina is in British Gibraltar territorial waters. He confirmed that a note verbal had been issued in 1982 when the mile was constructed, but there's no record of any protest when the marina was completed in 2008. The Minister for Europe added the UK government has made its position on sovereignty over British Gibraltar territorial water clear to the Spanish government, including recently at a senior level. Mr. Lidington was also asked what further steps he intends to take on this issue, but his statement in the House of Commons made no reference to any further steps. And we'll be back with more of this week's news after the break.